Well, our focus continues to be the skirmish reported on the 9th of December between India and China. For the first time now, the Defence Minister as well as the Home Minister have come out and categorically made statements both inside as well as outside the Parliament, saying not an inch of land has been conceded to China at the LAC. Remember, this regarding the 9th of December skirmish. What we are picking up from our sources is that the Chinese PLA troops had advanced towards Indian positions, at which time the Indian troops repulsed them and pushed them back. Following which, there was a flag meeting which was held. There were, remember, during the skirmishes, a couple of Indian soldiers who were injured. However, the injuries on the Chinese side is expected to be much higher. In the midst of the politics where opposition parties have been saying that so far the government has been deceitful and also has been hiding the facts of what really led to the skirmish and how it was allowed on Indian land. This is the reaction. This is the statement coming in from the Raksha Mantri on the floor of the House.
9 दिसंबर 2022 को पीएलए ट्रुप्स ने तवांग सेक्टर के यांगसे एरिया में लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पर अतिक्रमण कर स्टेटस को एक तरफा बदलने का प्रयास किया। चाइना के इस प्रयास का हमारी सेना ने दृढ़ता के साथ सामना किया है अध्यक्ष महोदय, और इस फेस ऑफ में हाथापाई भी हुई है। भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया। अध्यक्ष महोदय, इस झड़प में दोनों ओर के कुछ सैनिकों को चोटें भी आई हैं और मैं इस सदन को अवगत कराना चाहता हूं कि हमारे किसी भी सैनिक की न तो मृत्यु हुई है और न ही कोई गंभीर रूप से घायल हुआ है। इंडियन मिलिट्री कमांडर्स के टाइमली इंटरवेंशन के कारण पीएलए सोल्जर्स अपनी लोकेशंस पर वापस चले गए। अध्यक्ष महोदय, और इस घटना के पश्चात एरिया के लोकल कमांडर ने 11 दिसंबर 2022 को अपने चाइनीज काउंटर पार्ट के साथ स्थापित व्यवस्था के तहत एक फ्लैग मीटिंग की और इस घटना पर चर्चा की। चीनी पक्ष को इस तरह के एक्शन के लिए मना किया गया और सीमा पर शांति बनाए रखने के लिए कहा गया। इस मुद्दे को चीनी पक्ष के साथ कूटनीतिक स्तर पर भी उठाया गया है। अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं इस सदन को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि हमारी सेनाएं हमारी भौमिक अखंडता को सुरक्षित रखने के लिए पूरी तरह से प्रतिबद्ध हैं और इसके खिलाफ किसी भी प्रयास को रोकने के लिए सदैव तत्पर है हमारी भारत की सेना। और मुझे विश्वास है कि यह सदन हमारी सेनाओं की वीरता और साहस को एक स्वर से समर्थन देगा। और अध्यक्ष महोदय, मैं पूरी तरह से आश्वस्त हूं कि यह संसद बिना किसी संशय के भारत की सेना की क्षमता, शौर्य, पराक्रम व प्रतिबद्धता का भी अभिनंदन करेगा। धन्यवाद अध्यक्ष महोदय।
Well, joining us now on the show for an inside view as to what really has happened, there is Ninong Ering joining us, a Congress MLA from West Pasighat, which is in Arunachal Pradesh. Also joining us, a strategic expert and author, RSN Singh. But before I come to you, gentlemen, a quick report from Priyank Tripathi. He is currently travelling towards Tawang. Priyank, once you are in the area where the skirmish allegedly has happened, around 1,000 fountains is the area. It is going to be critical for us to understand the situation on the ground, and that's going to be critical. Your reportage from there.
Yes, Sati Meghna, we are on the we are moving towards Tawang, which is approximately 450 kilometers away from Itanagar. And while landing in Itanagar, I could easily see that the Itanagar airport, which used to be a very small airport, which was certainly not having a capacity of having these kind of huge aircraft landing capacity like IL-76 or AN-32, which can bring more troops on the ground in case of any kind of emergency, has been built up in such a manner that it's almost a 2.5 kilometers long stretch of airstrip which has been made. But on the other side, while we are moving towards the Tawang, I could clearly see that there's a massive road construction work which is being going on in the National Highway 15. These are the factors, Meghna, because of which the Chinese PLA has been very much rattled. We know about the fact that since 2006, they have been trying to, attempt to enter the Indian territory, and that is one of the reasons because of which they have tried to have a dominance or try to show the dominance.
Yes.
But whenever they have attempted, they have been pushed back, and that is the courage which the forces have also shown on 9th and 11th.
Priyank, we'll just keep coming back to you. Ninong Ering, where are you joining us right now? You are one person who has been repeatedly flagging China's aggression along the LAC. What's happening right now?
To be very frank, I'm thankful that you are taking my quote. I'm in a place that Adipasi. It's a very far, very interior part of Upper Siang. You'll see that all these beautiful, you can see the view of this area. Of course, to be very frank, I was slightly, jolted when I heard that some army Jawans had been, injured. And then I immediately spoke to DC Tawang. Of course, unfortunately, DC Tawang was he was not aware of the facts because it was in the army level, so the district administration did not know about it. But he said that I have heard that, sir, that there were some skirmishes going on, but we had a flag meeting, and they had a flag meeting where both the army commanders, they had a meeting at Bumla, and then they said that the issue had been sorted out. Of course, the intervention of our army, I'm very proud of them. They are really, even in these, in these circumstances where there's extreme cold, minus it's in degrees, minus degrees, the army personnel are staying, and then this kind of incursion or kind of attack by the Chinese people. It is not that this is the first time. They have always come this side. They come through Chaglaham, they come through Kibito, then they come even through in Upper Subansiri. So we have this instance. We have the cordial atmosphere. Even now we have the cordial atmosphere. But I could not understand that what is tickling them that this time they are, the incursions are there, the kidnappings of our children, and the building of the infrastructure.
Is that what's troubling, Ninong Ering? Is that what is troubling China right now? Because India has been building infrastructure, roads to reach that final mile very close to the LAC, that China may be getting desperate and frustrated. Is that why repeated such attacks and skirmishes and misadventures are being reported?
Sorry, frankly speaking, I am not, Prabhari, I am not a spokesperson of the Congress, nor am I can quote this in the international level. But as far as I can see, China has its own problems. So when China is having those financial and other political problems, they would like to divert, and the divert is that they attack Arunachal. They find it is an easy prey, and our borders are not very well guarded. Of course, now along the border we have our troops, but it is such a long boundary that it is just not possible to guard, nor can we have a construction of these like that in Bangladesh or Pakistan, where we can have these permanent fencings.
Right.
Because it's completely jungle, and the terrain is so difficult, like especially in when you go to Dibang Valley. The last post is Dimwe. It is about 24 kilometers from Anini, the headquarter, and from there the border is 200 kilometers of wild, nothing, just inhospitable terrain. So these only we have the passes. Passes are Bumla Pass is there, that's in Tawang. Then we have the pass here in Siyomi district in Menchuka. So like that. But what I think is that this issue is the same tactics they had used, which they had done for Sungdungchu Valley.
Absolutely.
But now the Indian Army is strong, and we hope that our people are also with the government, with the nation, and we are all, people who say Jai Hind, Bharat Mata ki Jai.
Absolutely.
Sure.
But Eric, China has always had its eyes on Arunachal, specifically in the Tawang area, from stapled visas to the kidnappings which have happened of the hunters along the border. How has India retaliated, Indian forces retaliated to these constant pinpricks which are coming in from China? Has the border infrastructure increased? Has there been an increase in the troop deployment? Because some are saying that China's troop deployment along the LAC has increased by 75%. Is that also true on the Indian side?
Yeah. We have seen, and we have got the reports also, the people along the border, that they have even put their ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, along the border. Of course, we are also strengthening our forces. We have, as far as I can see, that our Indian forces also, they have increased the ratio, and putting up the harvesters and this buffers guns, and also, and even making these airports along our whole state, I think will help in the air strikes and all against China, if at all, God forbid, that if there is any kind of a war or an incursion that goes. Now also we have seen that the incursions that are taking place is just by the Jawans. The PLA, they come down here to this, you can say, disputed area or no man's land, and here they, try to aggravate our forces. But our forces are on the defensive side. I don't think that China has the intention of really starting a war, because they will be at the losing side, not we.
Do stay on with us. Ninong Hering, I'll just come back to you. You're someone who has repeatedly red flagged these kind of Chinese intrusions which have been happening, as you've been calling it. A quick word from Priyank as well. Priyank, how much time before you reach somewhere close to the LAC? And you must explain to us the army build-up from the Indian side as well along the LAC after the heightened alerts have been sounded over the last few years.
See, Meghna, the forces have always been on high alert, and because of the tough terrain, we have patrolling from both the sides. We know that the Chinese PLA also does patrolling, but over the period of time, they attempt to come inside the area, because as our guest was also telling us, that these areas are not fenced. These are open areas which are into the mountains, and the marcation of the boundary wall, the LAC, line of actual control, is something which has to be followed from both the sides. But Indians follow it. The Chinese of time and again attempt to break that chain of the rule, because that kind of stand the Chinese has with respect to Arunachal Pradesh and the international forum, what they have been blabbering about. But the fact of the matter is that whenever they have attempted to come, they have been pushed back, they have been beaten back. This time they were so desperate that instead of using their muscle power, where they failed to push back the Indian forces, they started putting stones on the Indian forces, which was a clear-cut juvenile act from one of the army, which is said to be one of the biggest, one of the biggest army in the world. So fact of the matter is that the desperation of the PLA is quite visibly seen. We know for the fact that the manner in which India is right now, establishing and maintaining their developmental work. They are coming up with new projects, road and everything. I'm on the highway, Meghna, and as I was telling you to Pratibha also, and while we were talking on the other side of the bulletin, that look at the kind of condition the road which is being built up. These are the national highways. The second carriageway is being made. On this side of the carriageway, you can clearly see that the movement of the security force and the armed personnel in case of extreme situation would be very beneficial for the Indian armed forces, and that is a fact because of it the Chinese have been rattled about. We are talking about Tawang, which is barely around 250 kilometers, 450 kilometers away from Itanagar, and the Itanagar airport is also so big that now it can take load of heavy aircraft and other things. So obviously the Chinese spy, the PLA spy, everyone has been looking at it, and time and again they come, they try to disturb the situation so that they can have some kind of mental pressure on the Indian forces. But fact of the matter is that our forces are smart enough to understand this fact that this these things are done for the optics. These things are done by the Chinese PLA to divert the attention from the real issue, but adding more fuel to the fires. We have our Indian, opposition party leaders who have been time and again talking about the credibility of the forces, what forces have been doing. They want to visit the location which is favorable to them. But communally, while talking about the other vote share bank, where they gain politics, they refrain to do that over the period of time.
Right.
So the fact of the matter is that after the flag meeting which happened on 11th, the situation is calm here. But this can once again being aggravated by the Chinese. There's no denial about the fact. That's why our forces are on high alert.
Well, in fact, do stay on with us, Priyank. Let me go across to Major General retired Sanjay Soy, who's joining us. Now, Mr. Sanjay Soy, you must explain to us what's happening at the border, because we've seen India take very belligerent stand when it comes to Pakistan, but when it comes to China, diplomacy seems to be failing. Is it time to give the armed forces a free hand at the LAC?
Meghna, you are absolutely right. In fact, the government has given free hands to the army. In fact, after Galwan, the policy was changed. And that is why the thought process is totally different now. You see, armed forces have always been proactive, have always had an offensive mindset. But now the thinking at the top leadership, at the government level, things have changed. Now we see the examples, whether it is in Galwan or against Pakistan and Balakot or surgical strikes. It's not that we will take whatever somebody comes and gives us. We'll respond appropriately. Here also, if you see the alertness of the troops, the kind of deployment which have taken place, it is like mirror deployment all across, whether in India, whether Ladakh or this side, Tawang side, or the development of infrastructure also speaks of the offensive mindset. Earlier, we did not develop the infrastructure for fear the Chinese will use it and come to us. Now, if we are thinking that, okay, we should be able to reach wherever we are, our troops should be able to reach wherever we are fastest and switch forces from one place to another. That is why this speaks of the overall thought process, overall change in the thinking from defensive or weakness to strength and proactive.
Right. Major General Saab, we'll just come back to you because I want to ask you in great detail exactly what are the steps, how and to what extent are infrastructure being built. We'll just come back to you. A quick word also from Priyank. Priyanka, you were explaining to us even the highway and the airport infrastructure that you've seen. You're saying that it has been ramped up and it is now prepared. That itself is India's part of defenses. The first line of defense is to build that infrastructure.
Yes, Amil would just turn back and show those JCB machine and those heavy vehicle machine which are placed on the national highway, Meghna, which is a clear picture showing that how Indian government has been now, very much focused about the construction work on the national highway, because we know for the fact that the movement of the security forces is one of the important factor. We have recently made one of the airport which can take strength of, heavy aircraft like AN-32 and IL-76. Then on the other side, these roads which are leading towards the extreme locations on the towards the LAC is something which is certainly rattling the Chinese army forces. What sources have been also suggesting, Meghna, that the movement and the flying of the lightweight drone have also increased over the period of time by the PLA side. That's why the Indian Air Force had to use Sukhoi Su-30 to be flown away, from this area, so that the message should go loud and clear that we are not far away from you. If you get indulged in any kind of wrong, tactics, certainly you'll be hit back. And that is also what had happened on 9. While once again telling to our viewers who have been patiently watching our broadcast, let me tell you to them that on 9th there was a movement of the PLA towards LAC, which is the line of actual control. And since these areas are not fenced, they attempted to move inside the Indian area, and they were trying to build up a temporary structure. They were obstructed then and there by the Indian patrolling team, by the Indian army. And when the scuffle happened, the PLA had to run back. They came back once again at around 10:30 to 12:30 with more additional forces. Our forces were also called back. And before they can once again attempt to establish and have their dominance in the area, they were pushed back. This kind of tension continues continued on 10th as well, and on 11th, after both the headquarters spoke to each other, there was a meeting which happened, in this area. The flag meeting happened, and now the situation has been brought back to normalcy. But the situation is certainly tense. We cannot say that the PLA will once again not indulge in this kind of situation, looking at the previous conduct. So our forces are on the close watch.
Of course, the forces are already on high alert. In fact, as Major General Soy was also saying, that already a free hand has been given after Galwan and the policies have been tweaked. However, Captain Alok Bansal is also joining us, the Director of India Foundation. Captain Bansal, however, even though a free hand may be given, what needs to be done to decisively end these transgressions? China has its own political compulsions back home. It may be a diversionary tactic, but what can India do? Can diplomacy alone be enough?
I think we need to push Chinese to accept delineation of line of actual control, this which we have been saying for a very long time, and Chinese have been dithering on it. But I think we should start sector by sector delineation. And maybe if Chinese are not willing, we should unilaterally proclaim the line of actual control as far as eastern sector is concerned and exchange it with them, if that is the requirement. At the same time, we need to build up our infrastructure, which we have been doing. I think probably that is the reason why we are seeing frequent transgressions by Chinese, because earlier, many of these places, we didn't have infrastructure to go and patrol. So now we are seeing that our troops are also going, and we are there, and they are also coming in a bigger way, because earlier Chinese positions along the border were very, very few. They usually would stay very far away from the border and come once in a month or 2 months or something like that. They would come for patrolling and then go back. So I think it is these frequent patrols which are creating a problem. The armed forces always had a free hand. They had a free hand to deal with this thing. But obviously, they don't have a blanket permission, because the situation as far as China border is considered is very complex. The perception of LAC differs between the two sides. Absolutely. And I think for that, certain amount of restraint is essential. What we need to understand is that in this particular conflict also, both sides have exercised restraint. They may have pelted stones, they may have come to fisticuffs, but nobody used a firearm. So that's what is important, that you need to understand that neither Indians nor Chinese are keen to escalate the issue. But in this sort of an ambiguous situation where line of actual control itself is not defined, you are bound to have such incidents, because the troops on ground, the Chinese troops on grounds are firstly not trained well. And so they
So the first step perhaps to end these constant skirmishes would be to get China to accept what is our idea of the LAC, because the ambiguity lies there. We'll just come back and discuss more on this. Colonel Arunachal Singh, an author, strategic expert, also here on the show. We'll just come back to you, gentlemen, as well as to Priyank. But for the time being, a short break. We're returning very soon.